we also get a flavor for what's going on in the jobs market from the latest Pulse of the American Worker Survey, which comes to us via Prudential. Rob Falzon, the Prudential Financial Vice Chair, is joining us now, as he always does, to talk about this report. One of the things that stands out to me, and this kind of goes along with job openings, with the quits rate, is how many people are still looking for a job, even if they have one, right? You guys found 21% are actively looking, 29% are considering looking. Why are people still sort of so antsy in their positions, according to your findings?
Yeah, so Julie, I call this people in motion, right? So it's like 72% if you add it all up between people who have changed jobs and those that are, in some level of thinking about changing jobs. And as we look at sort of what's underlying that data, there are sort of 3 or 4 things that come out. One is this concept of flexibility. And so there's a myth around people don't want to come back to the office because they're concerned about the pandemic. It's actually they don't want to come back to the office because they finally figured out how to work remotely and they like it. And they want to retain some of the flexibility associated with that. 2, when they're thinking about the changing jobs, they're often moving not just for compensation. And in fact, a third of our surveyed participants that changed jobs actually took a pay cut. What they're also looking for are kind of career, in addition to flexibility, career development opportunities and benefits. And so those are the 3 things that sort of rank highest in their preferences as they're looking to move from where they are into a new position that's going to give them greater flexibility, opportunities to progress their career. Most instances they're looking for compensation as well, but with a significant minority, not prioritizing that. And then looking for a benefits package, the idea of compensation incorporating things beyond just your pure salary, but the support you get through your benefits package.
Rob, do you find that shocking that folks are willing to take less money in an environment where we're seeing inflation approach 10%? How do you explain that?
Stunning, Brian. I have to say, of all the things that came out of this survey, that's the one that I almost fell over when I read that a third took a pay cut. I think it does say something around the importance of flexibility. Incidentally, the other piece of data that came through there, 30% went to gig or part-time employment as well. And so what it's showing is that there's this incredible amount of stress in the household around work-life balance and the prioritization of that. And so while there is a real concern around financial resiliency and security, and that comes out in the survey as well, individuals are looking at that work-life balance, mental health concerns, and they're prioritizing that ahead of many other issues, at least balancing it out with economics.
One of the things that I found surprising from the survey is that workers seem to want the hybrid model, but it stresses out managers to manage workers in the hybrid model. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Julie, here's what happened. So, when we were in place, everyone was in the office. Everyone was okay with that. We knew how to work when we were all together in the office. And then when we first went remote 2 years ago now, stress levels spiked. And that's because we were all trying to figure out how do we work in a remote environment when everyone's remote. And then over time in our surveys, as we did these things throughout those 2 years on a roughly quarterly basis, we saw stress levels actually beginning to come down as people figured out how to balance the household issues against work issues. Kids went back to school, infrastructure for support came back up. And so it got very manageable. And so stress levels became, started to moderate back down. So we figured out, we know how to work when we're all together. We figured out how to work when we're all remote. Now we're going into a hybrid work environment. That's an entirely different work model, and we don't know how to do it. And it's causing spikes in stress, not just incidentally for managers, which, they're caught in the crosshairs of this. So I feel a lot for our managers, but for employees as well. Almost 60% of employees also indicated they came back to hybrid. They're stressed out about it because of some of the difficulties they perceive in how do they work with their coworkers who may be in the office at the same time they are or may not be. And how do we work in sort of an asynchronous fashion when you've got some people in, some people out at different points of time of the day?
Rob, well, can you give us 3 tips here? If one is a manager out there watching this, how do they address this stress amongst their workforce? I mean, there has to be more to do here besides, I don't know, handing out a $39 a month Peloton subscription to make them happy.
Yeah, I think about it. Actually, I think it's, not only reducing the stress, really, we're in a war for talent. And that comes out in all the data that we see, through the great resignation, through, in the JOLTS report that came out yesterday, still 11.3 million job openings. And so as I coach our managers, I'm about, how do we create an environment that employees are going to want to feel attracted to and want to sort of stay at our platform and, in fact, attract new people into the company. And the priorities around that is you have to have competitive pay. I mean, while we talk about all these other issues, and while a significant minority are willing to take a pay cut for work-life balance, the reality is pay still is table stakes, and you need to be market compensation. But if you end there, you end with a transactional relationship with your employee, and that means they're just going to leave for the next highest paying job. You really have to go beyond that, and so you have to address some of the motivations, some of the causes to the stress that they're experiencing. And the main thing that both employees and managers identify is flexibility. So hybrid has two dimensions to it. It has a space dimension, which is sometimes we're working from home and sometimes we're working in the office, but it has a time dimension to it as well, which is, not everyone's going to be working at the same time. If I'm commuting in, I'm no longer available for that 8 o'clock conference call because I'm in my car or on the train on the way into the office. I might be leaving 5, 6 o'clock whenever you leave, and I'm not available for that conference call at the end of that day. So we're going to have to figure out how to work asynchronously. Incidentally, I think global companies, and we're a global company. We figured this out with our coworkers that are working in other parts of the world that are in different time zones. We just need to figure out how to do that with our coworkers now that are in the same time zone, but potentially working different hours. So I think that flexibility. The other big thing that you have to do with your employees is they're also stressed about career development and skilling. Are they able to progress? And that was a challenge in a remote environment, and they're feeling that same challenge in a hybrid environment. So need to invest in development employees' mobility so they see opportunities to move around the company and opportunities to move up in the company, and the skilling that they need in order to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Rob, that time aspect I think is so underappreciated. I think that's a really interesting point. Finally, just quickly, if I may, you guys are about to officially return to work, right? Talk to me about, just in talking to colleagues, what are people dreading it? Are people excited? What's the general vibe there?
Yeah, so all of the above, Julie. So we're coming back on March 16th, second year anniversary of when we went out for the pandemic. So we wanted to make it sort of a significant date. We brought people back in. We've had some people back in already. I would say up to around 20% of our teams have been in over the course of the last 6 months or so. But now we're opening it up to everyone. And so there's a lot of energy around it. The space people come back to is going to look entirely different than what they left. We've refitted every floor to accommodate much more collaboration, meeting, and ideation than sitting at your desk, because our view is if you're going to sit at your desk, do that at home. Come in to meet with people. So there are some that have levels of apprehension about this. They're going back into the commute. They're worried about the asynchronous work schedules. But I would say many are actually looking forward to the opportunity to come back. Most are looking forward to the opportunity to come back and see their coworkers that they haven't had an in-person experience in 2 years now. So, and we're hopeful that the more that occurs, the more energy and excitement that will occur. As people coming back, they realize what they missed and they'll be excited about being back. But we're going to be very flexible about this. We intend to let people figure schedules out, and to the extent that individuals are not comfortable coming back at this time, we've also told them, stay home. You've been working at home for 2 years. It's working. Continue to do that until you feel comfortable coming back.